It's Tuesday and you're watching FreightWaves Now. I'm your host, Anthony Smith, and we have Michael Vincent back with us with a shipper update. But first, we're going to go to Zach Strickland with the carrier update brought to you by PowerFleet. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, and welcome to your Tuesday carrier update presented by PowerFleet. I'm Zach Strickland. Looking at our tender rejection index year over year seasonality chart here to see where we stand year over year. Obviously, tender rejection rates still well above where they were the past 2 years, 2018, 2019. Tender rejection rates did fall, however, slightly, back under 28% for the first time in about a week or so, 27.93%. We do expect some level of supply to come back online, obviously, this week. Tender lead times, of course, coming back down as shippers are now tendering freight for the next week or so, not a holiday interfering with any of that capacity for now. We're going to have a few more weeks where things probably settle out a little bit, but we don't expect these tender rejection rates to fall back with any significance, not like they did in years past. If you look back, in 2018, we had a nice little jump in tender rejection rates before they came back down. If you notice, the trend line, though, on 2018 is far different than the trend line on 2020. You see that it's still, if you go back a little bit, we're still trending higher on the tender rejection index for the United States. 2019, we had a significant jump right around Christmas, and it was trending higher overall in that purple line down there at the bottom. So we do anticipate tender rejection rates probably remaining in this vicinity for the remainder of the year. Looking at our tender market share. So we know tender rejection rates are high. We know capacity's tight. It's probably going to stay that way. Let's see where the volumes are shifting around the country. So week over week change there in the map. If you look at anything blue, that means that tender market share values are moving into that area. You're growing in those areas in relation to the other markets in the country. We've got our tender market share weekly change percentages up here on our little chart here. Ontario, California down 1.5%. Allentown, Pennsylvania, Elizabeth, New Jersey, two of the biggest movers in the country right now, 16.5 and 6.5% week over week increases in tender market share value. So that indicates that in relation to the rest of the country, these two markets are growing in overall tender volumes, indications that you could have significant capacity changes in these areas. Volumes, of course, growing in these areas. If you're a carrier, I know you don't like to go up there. I know you don't like to go into those markets, but there is a lot of activity going on up around that little corridor over there in the New England entry point, right around Allentown and Elizabeth, New Jersey. If we look at our tender market share map, continuing to stay right over there on your right, and then we have our weighted rejection index here on your left. You can see that there's a little bit of an overlap in that New England corridor up there in that Elizabeth, New Jersey, blue and blue, both increasing market share value, weighted rejection index also increasing, indicating tender rejection rates also jumping up in that area. The rest of the country, I don't want to say it's quiet because there's still a lot of volatility, but Dallas, Texas, this midsection of the country, starting to see some capacity return right there around Atlanta, Georgia, etc., starting to feel a little bit looser there over the last little bit. But the big point of these two maps is to tell you that up there in the New England markets, we're still seeing a lot of volatility, increase in rejection rates. Now, this is the outbound tender rejection index for Elizabeth, New Jersey with van and reefer rejection rates. You can see they're both trending higher. Van there in the green, reefer there in the orange. We did see a little bit of contraction on the reefer. Overall, though, reefer has been starting to increase pretty rapidly in relation to the van rejection rates here over the last bit. A New England market, not necessarily a very active reefer area in the United States. So I can illustrate that here in this chart right here, where we've got a lot of, you can see over time the reefer rejection rate accelerating there on the right, and then you have your van rejection rate hovering around that 27% area. Mid-haul rejections leading the way out of this market, so you kind of put a boundary around that, anything around about 250 to 450 miles, and then you also have tweener rejections, which is that 450 mile to 800 mile loop. These are going to be the highest rejection areas, but everything above 27% out of Elizabeth, New Jersey right now, meaning that you are going to have a lot of opportunity on the spot market up there if you get up there. And that'll do it for today's carrier update.
The comprehensive logistics offerings from PowerFleet cover in-cab ELD, fleet management, trailer tracking, cargo monitoring, and tracking other assets such as chassis and intermodal containers. Power up your operations with PowerFleet.
Hi, I'm Mike Vincent. Welcome to your shipper update. Let's jump into it. I have the outbound tender volume index up for the United States over 2019 in the orange and 2018 in the green. This is a 7-day moving average. As you can see, we're in that holiday trough right here that happens every holiday. You can see it the past years. You can see it back here in Labor Day and also 4th of July. Now, we're expecting, obviously, this will tick up quite dramatically as you see these spikes back up to this area. And do not expect to see this trickle off that you see going into Christmas and New Year's that you typically see at the end of the year. We expect it to remain flat to upward movement in those volumes as we head towards Christmas over the next few weeks and into the New Year's. If we look at outbound tender rejections, in the blue we have outbound tender rejection index. In the orange is 2018 and 2019 in green, up at 27.93%. Some capacity will be coming back online, obviously, this week. But as we move towards and look for that to stay steady in that 26, 27, close to 27 area, but then an uptick then again right before the holidays. So certainly not going to drop into anything where you're going to get any relief as a shipper. Pressure still very high on rates. If we look at the van outbound tender rejects, it is at 27.68% there in the blue. And then we have the reefer in orange at 47.36 and flatbed sitting at 15.04 right now. Expect those to remain elevated as well. If you're a shipper in those particular modes, you're not out of the woods this year for certain. If we take a look at the rates on the left-hand side, I have the rates on the first column here is flatbed rates, the middle is reefer, and the far right here is van. I have it sorted by the highest rates by lane in van, and looking at Los Angeles to Las Vegas, $5.06. Syracuse to Hartford, $4.88. Elkridge to Hartford, $4.77. You've got Cleveland to Winchester at $4.58. LA to Phoenix, $4.50. Definitely still high pressure on spot market rates. If we look to the right-hand side here, we have blue, the 7-day van rate per mile at $3.05, and the overall reefer at $3.45. And then we have the flatbed sitting at $2.78. So definitely still upward pressure. We move on to the map here of outbound tender rejects in your color. Your deepest blues are your highest rejections. The height of those markets are the volumes. This is overall modes. Southern California, very high volumes, a little bit of relief in the tender rejections. As Zach was saying, the Northeast over here with Harrisburg and EWR, Elizabeth, New Jersey, really elevated in volumes and tender rejects hitting that area, as well as up into the middle of the company. Or the country. Volumes in Ohio, Columbus, Indianapolis, up through Chicago, still very, very high, putting pressure on those. If we look at the van, you can see in the van middle of the country and into the Northeast, especially that Harrisburg market, very, very high. If we look at reefer, again, center of the country, and look at over here, northern Florida and southern Georgia, low volumes, but very high in the reefer rejections, as you see the central Florida and Alabama or Atlanta markets really sucking up that capacity in those markets. That's your shipper update. I'm Mike Vincent.
And that's going to do it for this Tuesday edition of FreightWaves Now. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you can check out all of our content on all your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple TV. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.